Hey there, Vikings fans. You are listening to the Purple People podcast. My name is Kyle West, and I am accompanied by the one and only, the man with the plan. His name is Adam Carlson. What's up, Adam?
Not a whole lot. I'm here to talk about some Vikings football today. It's what I always like to talk about. My friends get sick of it. It's just weird.
Time
They're
for
like,
new
"Hey Adam, how
friends.
you doing?" And I'm like, "Vikings."
I say time for new friends if they don't like Vikings football.
Anyway, I'd like to welcome you to episode number 91 of the Purple People podcast. This is free agent Cody Banks.
Ah, Secret Agent Cody Banks. I was playing on that one.
That's right. That's right.
We could possibly be the two people who will get that reference.
Yeah, not good. Not
I
good.
don't think that's too popular of a one.
Well, let's head right into the quick hits because we have a lot to talk about. This is our free agency show. We're gonna have a lot of talk about free agency. So let's get these quick hits out of the way and get right into the meat and potatoes of this situation here.
I like potatoes.
Cornerback Chris Cook. We all love him, right?
Occasionally.
He said that he'd love to stay a Viking and work with Coach Zimmer, but tweets that he had tweeted out earlier this week kind of are stating that the Vikings are going to let him test free agency and try to get him back on the cheap, which is pretty much exactly what I thought would happen with Chris Cook. But a cornerback with his size and speed really, I think, will get a look from another team at a price a little higher than the Vikings might be willing to pay.
I am okay with that scenario that you listed. I let him go ahead and test it, see what's out there, let the team throw an offer out there. I've kind of, now the season's over with, you have a little bit of time to put the frustrations of what happened during the season behind you a little bit. You can kind of step back and, evaluate players and whatever with more of a level head. And I have kind of warmed up a little bit more to the notion of maybe Cook coming back under the right circumstances. I'm kind of 50-50, but I think that the smart way would be to the team to, set a price, and if he's able to, if there's another team that's going to beat that, I don't think that you counteroffer. I think you let him go and you let him move on. But if he is able to come back, I would actually be interested to see what the new staff could get out of him. But
I like him at a reduced rate and a reduced role.
me too.
He's a guy that could come in as a backup, and maybe this coaching staff could help build him up a little bit more, because he never really got out of the blocks.
No, he didn't. And these guys, Zimmer and co, seem like they are much better, are much more, playing to players' strong suits, and so that could help guys like Cook out.
Absolutely. The next quick hit. Coach Zimmer has informed Christian Ponder that the team will be drafting a quarterback and will also look for one in free agency. This isn't news to Vikings fans who knew that this was going to be the case, but it should maybe be news to Christian Ponder.
Although I would think you would have to expect it a little bit, just based on the fact that he's currently the only quarterback on your roster, and you at least need, heck, you usually bring 4 of them into preseason and work your way out from there. So I would think that he would be expecting them to draft one and sign one in free agency and maybe pick one up out of the undrafted class to be your training camp body guy.
Yeah. Gotta have one of those.
So it's like he should be expecting that.
Yeah. But he might not be expected
the
way past seasons, how he was handed the starting job.
Yeah, he's gonna have to fight for it this year for sure.
Definitely. Sad news for Vikings fans that are looking for a certain quarterback out there. Sources from inside the Redskins organization have told ESPN's Adam Schefter that quarterback Kirk Cousins is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I believe they kind of threw out those numbers early on about what they wanted out of him, just to kind of test to see maybe what reaction they get from teams. I'm assuming that they didn't get anywhere close to the interest for what they wanted out of him, and so now they're just going the route of, well, you know what, he's not for sale.
Yep. Might as well do that rather than put him out there and have teams offering fifth, sixth round picks for him. Just hold on to him, keep him as a backup. It makes sense.
Exactly.
More quarterback talk. Man, I'm doing a lot of that
A lot of
today.
quarterbacks tonight.
This one's Brad Johnson.
Oh, jeez.
Former Vikings quarterback Brad Johnson said that Norv Turner is the horse whisperer of quarterbacks, and that he should help Minnesota's offense become strong and good once again.
I actually did hear that too, although I didn't realize it was Brad Johnson. I just kind of skimmed by the headline and didn't realize it was him that had said that. But there you go. I didn't think we'd be talking about him today.
No,
No.
it's a new one. And the next one hits me hard. I don't like this one. It hurts me deep. The Vikings will release tight end John Carlson. Word is that the team attempted a contract restructure and the team and Carlson could not agree upon the terms.
I'm really not surprised. I'm
I
really
actually
not.
am. I am surprised because I didn't see with the guaranteed money in Carlson's contract and it only freeing up $2 million in cap space. I don't see the Vikings being able to go out in free agency and pick up a tight end for the $2 million that is the difference. That is on the same level as John Carlson. Carlson stepped in last year, had several big
Hmm.
games, led the team in receiving on a couple occasions, and is a solid blocker. I understand the worries about his concussions at his young age, but honestly, I'm wondering if Carlson might have seen this coming. And I know this might be a jerk move, but if he had retired, he would have been completely free of that guaranteed money. The team would have
Yeah,
been relieved of that.
yeah, I know.
But
I
for
I
him to
see where
come
you're
back
going with that.
and try to renegotiate, now with him being released, he still gets that guaranteed money and he doesn't even have to play anymore
Hmm.
if he doesn't want to. I mean, I'm sure some team might I'll say might take a chance on him because I'm kind of being a hypocrite here, maybe just because I do enjoy John Carlson's play.
Hmm.
And I gave, in a similar situation, Javid Best for the Lions, if you remember him. He was out of the NFL and still is because of multiple concussions. And teams are afraid to take a shot on him because of the health conditions. So maybe that will happen with John Carlson. Either way, it sounds like Carlson will either get attention or get paid. So got to feel good for him either way. I mean, for him on his family side.
I'm okay. I'm okay with the team moving on from John Carlson. I believe that they're looking probably towards the draft and are gonna go. We're gonna draft us a tight end that we believe we're gonna get a young guy that we can groom, kind of alongside Kyle Rudolph. And
I don't know. I
those
could
two
see
will
him
be
going
our,
forward with Rudolph, Chase Ford, and Red Ellison.
which is actually a decent. That's a decent enough combo too. But as for Carlson, like you said, if another team decides to do something with him, I could see him being one of those guys that we're gonna bring in for training camp. We're gonna let our medical staff evaluate him, feel how
Right.
comfortable we are, and then go from there. And he could be, maybe will be one of those guys that could be another 1 year prove-it contract deal on another team. And if he's able to stay healthy, play a full season, maybe he'll get a larger contract on another team. I don't see him getting another large contract coming
No.
out of the Vikings to play with another team.
No, the contract that he signed to when he came to Minnesota was pretty lucrative, and it was pretty much a known fact that as soon as it was signed, that this contract would not be played out.
Yeah, it was a pretty for all the moves that fans are vocal about Rick Spielman making. I think that is the one that people don't talk about it enough. I think that was kind of boneheaded. Not so much the signing of John Carlson, but the contract that they signed him to. I never understood. I understood why they brought him in, and
Yeah.
that always made sense, but not for the deal that they signed him to.
All right, and I heard you have a quick hit for this week.
I do. This one kind of indirectly ties into the stadium, and I'll get to that in a minute. It actually has to do with the Mall of America. The Mall of America in Minnesota is going to be undergoing a great big huge expansion. It's a $300 million project. And the reason why I bring it up, I don't know if you've seen the photos, Adam.
I have.
Uh, the expansion they're putting on actually resembles quite a bit of the looks of the Vikings Stadium with the big glass panels
It does.
and everything on there. So the reason why I bring it up is because I just think it's interesting. The people who were saying that the Vikings don't need a new stadium, the Metrodome is fine. Well, look, they bring in this awesome new stadium that they're getting built. It's a unique, awesome looking structure. And then the Mall of America, another real famous landmark there in Minnesota,
Oh yeah.
is also getting a bit of an overhaul added onto it, and it's going to match the new stadium. And that's just a little bit of proof with the trickle down effect of having a big sporting franchise like the Vikings in there, and what it does for a state. And I think that's really cool that they're modeling it, even if it's indirectly, that it kind of looks like the new stadium.
Now, I'm a Vikings fan that lives out of state. I live in Michigan.
Hmm.
So when I go to a Vikings game, I want to catch a couple of other things. I usually hit the Mall of America, hit the Vikings team store because it's an awesome place to
Hmm.
go and check things out. Um, the nice thing is that you can park at the Mall of America, you can go do some shopping, and then you can catch that train right over to the stadium. And it's so cool now that you're going to get a little bit of that feel from the stadium at the Mall of America.
Yeah,
So that is something that fans will be able to take in and really enjoy. It's that sense of continuity with the surrounding area of the Vikings stadium, kind of embracing them and the way that the fans do, and that's really cool in my book.
yeah, it kind of makes it kind of all starts to match, like you said, and get an overall theme, and yeah, whatever. So I just thought that was interesting and wanted to bring it up.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Well, let's get on to free agency. Free agency starts at 3 p.m. Central Time on March 11th. I know a lot of us have this date circled on their calendar because there's a lot of big names out there that are going to be a lot of fun. We might see some new faces coming to the team, maybe some old faces coming back at maybe a little bit reduced price or reduced role, but either way, it's something to be excited about. Let's take a look at the free agents available, and me and Kyle will talk about their fit in Minnesota a little bit, maybe, and a little bit about what kind of deal we might see them in on, their role with the team. Maybe not that in depth, maybe just a couple words here and there,
Yeah.
but either way, it should
Okay.
be fun.
Can we start? Can I pick the player to start with? I don't know if you have
Uh,
him on your list or not, but I think this would be a good, fun place to start.
well, what position did you want to start with?
I wanted to start with Jared Allen
Okay.
because he is a free agent, and it is kind of leaked. I don't know if leaked is the right word, but it's came out over Twitter that he is going to be testing free agency. This is
Yes.
the first time in his career that he's actually had the opportunity to test it. When he was with the Chiefs, he got the franchise tag, and then he was traded to Minnesota. So he is excited to test free agency, but he has not ruled out the possibility of coming back to Minnesota under the right circumstances. So, what do you think, Adam? Do you think he will ultimately be a Viking, or will he sign on with another team in 2014?
Well, I think Jared Allen is entering the market at a bad time. His age is going to be a one factor. The fact that he didn't put up really good numbers last year could be another. But the worst factor of all is that he's entering a really cluttered mess of decent and good defensive ends in free agency.
Hmm.
Now, there's word out there that the Cowboys may be releasing defensive end DeMarcus Ware because of the size of his contract.
Which is a
That
big.
that would be another huge name on the market.
That's maybe the biggest name on the market if that happens.
You add in guys like Michael Johnson in Cincinnati, it's a huge name out
Hmm.
there. Lamar Houston in Oakland, Michael Bennett in Seattle. Don't forget about the other Vikings free agent, Everson Griffin. Then you got a couple role player guys that could step in and play when needed, like Antonio Smith and Sean Phillips, Red Bryant, Justin Tuck. These are all guys that are going to be competing for these roles on these teams. And I don't think Jared Allen realizes the situation that he's in, and he might be looking for another big payday at the end of his career, but I think he's going to be really disappointed with what he gets faced with in free
Hmm.
agency.
So, with all that though, do you think he's gonna be? Do you think he'll be with the team?
No, I still think some team will be willing to offer Jared more than the Vikings would,
Hmm.
and I could see the Vikings making a push for a guy like Michael Johnson or Michael Bennett or Lamar Houston, one of the other top guys in this free agency pool.
Hmm.
I see them making a harder push to re-sign Everson Griffin than Jared Allen, but I'm not saying it's impossible.
Hmm.
Definitely not.
I'm still kind of 50-50 on that one. I could honestly see it going either way, and right now I'm not really leaning one way or the other with it because, like you said, it's a pretty odd and strangely kind of deep class that's out there right now
It
at that
is.
position, and usually you would think that Jared Allen hitting the market is going to be the top of his class, but just kind of based on it, it's just odd how it's kind of working out this year.
It
And
is.
like I said, the situation surrounding him, Jared put up good numbers last year, but they weren't Jared Allen numbers,
Right.
which is I think the important thing to remember, when you're evaluating him. Uh, I don't know. I would love to see him back under the right set of circumstances. I believe Everson Griffin takes a little bit of top priority over top of him just because he's your younger guy. You've groomed him for 4 years underneath Jared Allen. You ultimately want to get a return out of him, and I believe that you can get a return out of him if he comes back to the team in a with a larger capacity. And if,
Right.
if that means maybe potentially letting go of Jared Allen, and yeah, he's going to have 3 or 4 years where he's still Jared Allen and he's still going to play at a high level, and maybe he doesn't reach the 22 and a half sacks like what he had before, but he's still going to put up decent numbers. And Vikings fans are going to look at that and they're going to go, maybe why did they let him go? But I think over time, you would see Everson stepping up to the plate, and in the long run, it would make sense to have stuck with him over top of Jared.
It's true.
Hmm.
It's true. Let's talk about the defensive tackle position now. We've got the Vikings are looking to fill a hole between Brian Robinson and Sharif Floyd. Right now, they still have Guion and Evans there, but I fully see, well, Guion, sorry. I fully see Latroy Guion being a cap casualty this year,
Hmm.
and Fred Evans being a rotational backup guy, and seeing the Vikings go after one of these free agents or a big name in the draft.
Hmm.
Now, there are some good bodies out there that we're looking at. One of the most notable ones is in the division, BJ Raji. A lot of fans would be excited to see the freezer come to Minnesota.
I hate to say it. I'm a big fan of BJ Raji, and this stems from before he was a Green Bay Packer. When he got drafted to them, I hated that because that means here's a guy that I like that I cannot root for at the moment because he's in Green Bay. But I like BJ Raji quite a bit. Don't necessarily 100% know if he's the right fit for Minnesota. Um,
I'd be interested to see what he could do when changed to
yeah.
a nose defensive tackle role in a 4-3 defense. I think that would suit him much better
Uh-huh.
than what he had in Green Bay. But there are other guys in free agency too that are really interesting. Paul Soliai, the former Miami Dolphin, could be a guy that the Vikings could call to see what's going on there. We got Arthur Jones from Baltimore. These are all young guys. Linval Joseph. He's a guy that will probably end up getting a big deal somewhere else, so I don't see the Vikings pursuing him as
Hmm.
hard as some of the other ones. But there are bodies out there. I do see the Vikings kind of holding off on the defensive tackle position until after the draft because there are some really good young bodies in this draft, and this is a really deep draft.
Hmm.
So that could be one position that maybe the Vikings wait on and see what happens later on.
And Kevin Williams, I don't think you rule out him coming back to the team either. I really
No,
don't.
I
I
haven't.
I don't think Kevin Williams is going to garner much attention from other teams, and I think that he's smart enough to understand that he's not going to get a big contract elsewhere. I think he would like to stay in Minnesota, and he would be willing to take a bit of a reduced role because he's going to know when I can be on the field, I'll be fresher and I'll be able to extend my career out by doing so. So I I don't want to say fully expect because you never fully expect anything in terms of NFL offseason acquisitions, but I do think he'll be back. I really do.
I could see Kevin Williams being one of those guys that takes what they call a hometown discount to come back.
Uh-huh.
He's said on multiple occasions that he wants to stay a Viking and retire a Viking, and although it may be lip service, I believe him.
I
I
believe
really
you.
do believe that he loves this team and wants to play here, and I think the team wants him here.
Hmm.
So I think the two sides may be able to come to something. Whether it's a starting role, I don't think so. I think that it would be more of a split role with him and Sharif Floyd this year rather than Williams as a starter, Floyd's the backup. We're going to see that role changing a little bit here, maybe over the next couple years. But Kevin Williams is a guy that I could see coming back.
Hmm. I did have something really quick I wanted to mention before we got into this, but I kind of forgot, Adam. Uh, I did also read on Twitter that the Vikings are kind of planning on gonna lay little bit low in terms of the real big high contract free agents.
Right,
So some of the guys that are gonna command a lot of money, a big multi-year deal, the real big guys like maybe your DeMarcus Ware if he hits it, they're not gonna go after that. They're gonna let it die down a little bit and then hit maybe the second wave of players. That doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't rule out if the right guy for the right price is available. They won't jump on him early, but I
right.
don't expect them to, 301 when free agency starts. The Minnesota Vikings have laid out a huge contract for the big top free agent. I don't see Spielman doing that. At least
No,
not this year.
no, not at all.
Okay, so you can continue on.
Linebackers, let's talk about some linebackers.
We need some of those.
Sadly, free agency might not be the place this year.
I don't think so either. I think draft. But who do we got out there?
Well, the name that everyone wanted ended up being franchised, and it's Brian Arakpo.
Hmm.
Now, I like Brian Arakpo. I think that he is injured too often, and when you're not on the field, you can't be an impact player. So
Yeah,
that's that's
that's the
as simple
truth.
as it gets.
That is the truth.
Uh, Word goes out that the Vikings aren't really as interested in Daquell Jackson from Cleveland as a lot of fans want them to be. You got Carlos Dansby, but then you got really role players like Daryl Smith, Brandon Spikes, John Beeson, O'Brien Schofield. These are guys that are role players. They're not really anything better than what the Vikings have currently.
Hmm.
You're not going to see uh, Perry Riley come in and start over the guys that got the starts last year. It's
Hmm.
just not going to happen.
Just different bodies. Talent levels not necessarily m- light years above, what they had. Just different bodies in there. Which sometimes
Right.
that's what you need. So you don't ever want to rule out bringing in, different guy, new system that just all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and you get what you're hoping for, high level play at it. But like you said, I believe that linebacker is something that they're going to address in the draft this year.
Absolutely. Now to the fun one. This is the one we've been waiting for. The
Quarterback,
cornerbacks.
quarterback.
No,
Oh,
cornerbacks.
you're going corner. Okay,
We're going to run through the defense here.
okay, I see.
Now, cornerback is really interesting because we didn't really see any tags used. We had one cornerback locked up down in Miami, but past that, we have a ton of big, young cornerbacks ready to just be plucked out of free agency. We got Altron Werner. Right off the top, he's the favorite. You hear Vikings fans going nuts about this guy, and rightfully so. He is pretty fantastic. And then you got Vontae Davis, Aqib Talib. I knew I was going to try to mess that one up. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Sam Shields, Captain Munnerlyn, Walter Thurman, Terrell Brown, Brandon Browner. All these guys are 30 years old or younger.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the guys that Rick Spielman loves. Younger guys that can come in and prove it. And even guys that have attitude problems, and I'll use air quotes on that, like Brandon Browner or Aqib Talib, some of those guys, I could see the Vikings taking on those guys because of the new staff they have and how they're going to be able to keep people in line.
And Mike Zimmer's no bullshit attitude when it comes to players. Like, I feel like he's the coach that can keep those someone like that in line.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the names on this list that just got added, Brandon Browner, 6'4". The guy just plays at a high level constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And he just got brought back off of suspension. The worry was that he wouldn't be able to participate in negotiations when free agency started, so him being brought up really helps that a lot. But all these names in free agency means one thing: supply is high.
Mm-hmm.
And when supply is high, demand goes down.
Mm-hmm. So you can get a good player on a good contract. I do believe that someone that you just mentioned will be a future Minnesota Viking. I don't know who precisely, because if I knew who, I would be playing the lottery right now.
That's right. But there are so many young, talented players at that position that I could see the Vikings kind of wait out and see all the big contracts go for players like Vontae Davis, and maybe see them maybe sliding an under-the-radar signing of like Walter Thurman or Captain Munnerlyn. Something like that.
I mean, let's face it, Sam Shields, doesn't that just kind of feel like a guy that they would bring in, coming from a division rival, bringing him over? I mean, doesn't that just seem like something they would do?
It's definitely possible.
Uh-huh.
It is. This show is actually running a little longer than I thought, so I think that we should talk about safeties and then save the offensive free agents for next week. What do you think?
Yeah, that works for me, Adam. We have actually spent quite a bit of time on this, so yeah, we'll talk about quarterbacks and all that other good stuff next week. But let's finish up safeties. Maybe we don't have any special teamers, do we?
I don't have them separated on my list.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, safeties, there's one name. And I wanted him last year, and I want him this year, but the money probably isn't there, and that's Jarris Byrd.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Bills. I also want the Vikings to go after Dante Whitner, but he is probably going to get locked back up by the 49ers. Very physical corner. Him and Harrison Smith could be a really scary combo when you think about it. But this is another position where you got a lot of young guys. Maybe some of them aren't as spectacular. You got guys like Stevie Brown and Antoine Bethea, role players, but you also have some really good guys out there, like Louis Delmas from the Lions, Mike Mitchell from the Panthers, Malcolm Jenkins from the Saints, and TJ Ward from the Browns. These are all guys that are young, developing playmakers that Minnesota could see sliding under the radar and picking up. And I do say sliding under the radar because, like you said, I do believe the Vikings kind of sit back a little bit and let the big money people come off the board.
Let those guys go first. Let the market settle from that point. And then you can get someone, like you said, you can get a good player at a good value if you're going to go into dive into free agency and do that. Safety is another position that I believe they're going to look to the draft to get some guys and bring in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's just what I think is draft for that one.
But if one of these guys is available at the right price, the Vikings will sign them and will bring them into camp. And that's what's exciting about this whole free agency thing, is you want to get these guys under contract, bring them into camp, see what they've got. And if they're not a fit, they're not a fit.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gained, nothing lost.
Because the Vikings got a pretty decent chunk of money to play around with.
They
Uh,
do.
they're 10th overall in the league for cap wise?
I actually think they're better than that.
Are they? I thought it was 10th, but that was maybe a while ago when I read that. I actually honestly don't remember.
But yeah, the Vikings do have some money to throw around, and it should be interesting to see what they do.
Hmm. Hmm.
We'll talk about offense next week. Although the Vikings don't have a whole lot of holes, the Vikings will be looking for to free agency to fill a couple, and we'll talk about that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's all I have for this week. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just the importance of role players. A lot of people view that as a negative term, I think, sometimes when they say, oh, well, that guy is just a role player on the team.
Right.
And you have to have solid role players throughout your roster to win in the NFL.
It's
You
true.
you can't just have your star Adrian Peterson and your star Cordero Patterson. You've got to have those guys that you can rely on when Adrian comes out or Patterson comes out or Harrison Smith has to come out. You got to have those solid role players who can step up and play when needed, either due to injury or, like you said, rotation or whatever. So
Yes.
don't knock a guy just because someone says he's a role player.
No, I don't see that as a negative
Yeah,
term at all.
no, I definitely don't. Jake Reed, there's a perfect example. There's a guy from back in the day, a wide receiver for the Vikings. Jake Reed, probably a role player in that offense
Yeah.
because you got Randy Moss, you got Chris Carter, but Jake Reed consistently made a lot of really good plays for the Vikings.
Right.
And
That's true.
without him, you know what? You can make the case that they wouldn't have been as successful as what they were back in '98.
Quite true.
Hmm.
Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you for listening. Tune in next week for the offensive free agents. Free agency will just be getting underway, and I don't think that we're going to see a lot of guys flying off before we have a chance to talk about them. But either way, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and remember to stay classy, Minnesota.